So I quit journaling. I'm guessing you clicked on this video because you quit journaling too. Maybe you're trying to get back into it or you don't even know where to start. Trust me, you are not alone. Today I'm gonna tell you why you quit journaling and why you haven't started again. What's keeping you from journaling and why is it so hard to start? Literally my goal for this video is for us to just start journaling again, and I feel like unless you understand why you have stopped journaling, you can't get there. So we're gonna do this together. And speaking of journaling again, oh hey, I just wanna let you know Journaling January is coming up. Join me and the other hundreds of you who are super excited to do this together. For more updates, you can check out Offline Humans on Instagram. There are many dark sides to journaling, and I feel like nobody talks about these, and I want to really elaborate on them because I feel like it's going to make you feel less alone and understand why you're resisting journaling. First and foremost, not all journaling formats are for everyone. I remember quite vividly when Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way morning pages was very popular and everybody was doing it. So the whole idea of this is you write 3 pages of unconscious thought very first thing in the morning. Now my experience was a very negative one. If you're in a very negative headspace like I was during that time, all of my morning pages were so depressing that I swear it would just set a terrible tone for the entire rest of the day. So while everybody on the internet was saying, hey, this is like the best thing you can do for your brain, you need to start writing everything that comes to your mind, I felt like it put me in such a terrible state of mind. So can you just imagine for 3 whole pages, negativity? I would close my notebook and I would feel worse. And I swear to you, I've never been in more of a depressive mode. So throughout my years of journaling, which I've been journaling for over 17 years, I've realized I am more into what I like to call therapy journaling. So it's basically where I speak to myself, almost like a therapist. I write the problem, like the solution just kind of comes up on paper. I don't even know how it happens. And that to me feels less of a loophole than if I'm writing all of my instant thoughts that come to my brain, because it actually feels functional in my life. In general, therapy journaling is a lot more structured than morning pages because you're actually going through a system of you have your problem, you have a solution. Really what I see is like hope at the end of the tunnel. I'm really understanding how I can fix my issue instead of just venting about my issue. Another downfall of journaling is the crisis you experience within yourself and authenticity, right? We're told to be very real, to pour out all of our thoughts in here, all of our fears, but it's actually really scary once you start to visualize and see it on paper. So I have dealt with a fake version of myself whenever I journal. I think there is nothing scarier than putting pen to paper and writing all of your fears, all of your realities of life. I think we're expected to be very real and very authentic in our journals, but to be quite honest, it's very hard to break into that shell, to remove yourself from this persona that you have of I'm an organized, beautiful, like clean type of person, but really then get really dirty in here. If somebody were to pick up my journal, I would never want them to read about the things that really happen in here, but then that defeats the purpose, right? Let's talk about real life experiences versus curated narratives. So for example, let's say you went through something very traumatic. I'll give you a little spiel of something. My first kiss was not beautiful. Did I journal about it? I did. Did I over exaggerate some of the things? Yes, I did, because I feared just seeing the reality of that. It is difficult to be authentic. One of my fears, and I've gotten this from a ton of you as well, is somebody picking up your journal and reading it. Like, yeah, of course you're gonna fake a version of yourself if you don't feel 100% comfortable or 100% like no one in your home is going to pick up your journal to read it. I have personally found this crisis with being my own self within my own journals, which then doesn't lead to a breakthrough in writing. Dealing with traumatic events through journaling. Who said that it feels better to relive that experience through your journal? No. Every time something traumatic happens in my life, or even like rejection, I completely avoid my journal. For me, it has been really difficult to relive and rewrite painful experiences. For example, I went through a very terrible death last year. Well, I didn't go through the death, of course, but anyways, that was so hard for me. Like, I would even start writing their name and I just would crumble. And then I'd be upset for the rest of the day. Like, I would literally feel this huge pain and I couldn't process it. In my opinion, the way to process your emotions, I sometimes believe that you really have to go to someone. You don't always have the right questions to ask yourself. I mean, comment below, like whenever you've lived through a very traumatic experience, do you find yourself writing in your journal? So instead of recounting how I feel, I instead will ask myself questions. So why this works for me is because I kind of feel like my own friend sitting with myself, but I'm not myself. However, I personally feel like I am not fully equipped usually, to relive experiences that have traumatized me. I feel like the process of journaling can be super exhausting, like just on your emotional well-being. I don't want to say reliving, but when you're going through memories, sometimes nostalgia can hurt. Maybe I'm just a really emotional journaler. There's too many waves of emotions as you're journaling. And I feel like whenever I go on Pinterest or whenever you're just like on Instagram, every girl just looks so cute and happy. And what about the other side? I think one of the worst emotions you can get with journaling is anger. I have felt this personally. I think this comes from trying to process, again, traumatic events in your life. Is it the 7 stages of grief? I mean, anger is such an interesting one. I saw on TikTok that people are starting this one journaling method called the no contact. So basically, let's say you break up with someone and you are so badly wanting to say so much to them, but you promise yourself, hey, we're not gonna be near each other. People are literally writing full journals to like their ex-boyfriends. And I think there's a very therapeutic part to that, but I also feel like what a waste of time, how negative. And that's just my perspective. I'd love to hear from you. I have to be very cautious of where I put my energy into. And that's why unless I'm in a very positive mindset, journaling just isn't for me. Journal dependency. I feel like whenever I'm having a terrible day and I haven't processed my emotions and something's on my mind, I almost have like an itch. And Dennis actually brought this up to my attention. He was like, journaling for you sometimes feels like smoking. And I was like, what the heck does that even mean? If my day is going to I feel like I'm like, I gotta go. I go pick up my journal. I start writing in it like a mad woman. And then I almost drop everything. It's the weirdest thing. It's almost like I realize, hey girl, you haven't processed what you need to process. Now is the time because you're about to explode. So that journal dependency to me is not healthy either. Partially, I do feel like I'm processing my emotions better in my journal than I would in real life. If it's just thoughts floating around, it could be very overwhelming. I'm a very visual person, so seeing it on paper does help me. But then I do feel like there's a personal dilemma between confiding in loved ones versus sharing all that turmoil onto my journal. Sometimes I'm afraid to tell my spouse how I really feel about things because, I don't know, we're going about our day to day and I don't want things to get messy. But then inside of my journal, I do feel like I don't get that second perspective. So it's just me, myself, and I. Oh yeah, that's journal dependency for sure. If someone were to tell me that they are resistant to journaling, I would say I totally get it. It's a ritual. In a way, it kind of reminds me of you want to get better sleep, just sleep earlier. Okay, yeah, cool, but how do I do it? It's the act of doing it. I also think the whole idea behind journal about your day, to me, it's not a fun one. Let's say I'm having the worst day of my life and somebody's telling me, well, journal about it because it's going to make you feel better. I sit down, I journal about it. I'm going to have resistance because, again, I do not want to relive that terrible day. So I do think finding your format of journaling might work really well. And there's a ton of different formats that you can try. So don't just stick to one. You kind of have to date around when you're journaling. You have to find what actually will work for you. Some people are much more into artistic type of journaling, right? That might actually feel relaxing. But what I will say is journaling shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel like self-care. I feel like there's a lot of different fears I have associated with journaling. Number one is the fear of somebody else finding my journal. Again, it feels too personal. I also think about when I die, who will keep that stuff, if somebody will respect me enough to not read it. I also know for you guys, there's a ton of concerns about your parent or your guardian or literally just anybody reading your journal. It kind of feels like an invasion of privacy. Another thing is sometimes it feels like a waste of time. Sometimes I feel like I would much rather just be in the real world dealing with the issue at hand versus sitting down and figuring out this could go this way, this could go that way, the pros, the cons, what am I going to say? It just feels all too much. There's definitely a lot of resistance when it comes to journaling, and sometimes we're not even aware of it. I think this is just a me thing, but I do think journaling can get expensive. Basic bland journal, $30 at Target. I also find that the more you get into Pinterest or just Instagram and seeing how cute journals can become, there's a sense of comparison. Even when I open up a brand new journal, I'm afraid to write in it because of the way that it's going to look. So that's my resistance as well. I immediately want a very aesthetically beautiful journal where I flip through, it's gonna look gorgeous, I can take an Instagram picture. Again, I think it's the whole mentality behind what a journal should be. It's the expectation that needs to be dropped. So for example, I tried to get into scrapbooking after being so inspired by all the gorgeous aesthetic pictures. I sat down, I had all my supplies out, and it took me hours. My back was hurting. I had 3 stickers on the page. I couldn't figure out the format. And then I just closed it up. I felt completely overwhelmed by the whole idea. Again, not just letting yourself flow with it. It's hard to get into flow. Nobody really teaches you how to get into that flow. I'm actually planning on doing a whole other video on how I have now started journaling after having all of this resistance, and that will be next week's video in case you're interested. Let's talk about inner answers. So you know what's astonishing about journaling? If you're able to let the barriers fall, if you're like brutally honest, chances are you already know the answers. But, and this is a pretty big but, you might just be too scared to actually confront them. I know this has happened for me, at least in the past. Unlike speaking with an actual human being, especially a professional, journaling kind of lacks a certain structure. So there's actually this new type of writing called reflective writing, which has really intrigued me, and I'm thinking about getting into it. Reflective writing is more than just narrating experiences. It really dives into feelings, insights, lessons learned from those experiences. So reflective writing is very question-based. It's basically asking yourself all the right questions. What stood out for me? What do I feel now? Would I approach this differently next time? Personifying the brain. Name your brain. It was all about giving your brain a really kind name. And the reason being is because our brain basically speaks to our subconscious. So I actually named my brain Jody. And the reason I named her Jody is because my life coach is called Jody. And Jody is somebody that is always very kind to me. She's very sweet. I feel like everything that she says to me is from a place of love and kindness. My brain will lead me in the wrong direction, okay? But Jody, my brain, is not that person. She is holding my hand, she's guiding me, and she's supporting me. Jody wouldn't tell me anything negative. She would just guide me and show me lots of love along the way, regardless of the situation I'm going through. So recognizing when to pause. As much as I advocate for journaling, I do recognize that it is important to take breaks, just like with anything in life. If you are working out really hard, or if you're just like on your A game, you need some form of flexibility and just a change. There was a phase where I tried the 3 pages of unconscious scribbling. So for many, it was really transformative, but for me, it was really stressful, honestly, and people continue to rave about how therapeutic it was and its potential, but I honestly just felt drained. If there's ever a journaling session where you also feel that way and you're kind of in this emotional turmoil, like you're reliving a breakup, or maybe you just feel like you're not in a good state of mind, maybe it's time to take a little breather, to take a break. I have really been wanting to get back into journaling, but the reality is I don't want to do it alone. As a matter of fact, I do feel like I need a community of people to help me get back into it, and you might be feeling the same way. Next week, I'm going to be releasing a video on why I'm journaling again. I'm going to dive into it with you, and I hope it inspires you to join a challenge where we journal together. I'll actually be shopping for my first journal again and sitting and just journaling live in the moment with you, and I'll be telling you about why journaling is healthy and why it'll be a great thing for us to do again. So stay tuned for that video where we go shopping together and find my personal methods that will work for both of us so that we can start journaling together. If you like this video, you'll love this one all about how to journal for beginners. You can click here to watch it next.